Hey, I feel the same way. Wednesday, March 30th, and we'll see whether being sane works or not. Let's see. Camp money is due. As far as the permission slip gets you in a group, money is what gets you on the actual bus. So then we should be good to go from there. And then blah, and did that. Blah, blah. There we go. Book-wise, you guys we'll get a chance to get farther into it. Let's see, we got through stinky stuff with you guys before. Passing, passing. Main character, passing. Pony. Oh, so why do you guys know Paul Newman?
Old guy.
He is an old guy, you are right. Cars, there you go. And then what else does, did you say maple syrup?
Ranch dressing.
It's like maple syrup, it tastes a little different. I don't not want to see how you eat your salads. Alright, which is there. And then that brings us to the greasers versus socias. And then this is the main group, which is the greasers. And then we have the socias. And then we have the red corvair. Who's in the red corvair?
Socias.
The socias, and the socias jump out and they try to give him a haircut, which apparently does not work. Ooh. And what does he say that they smell like?
He smells like no. What is that called? English leather, Medicaboom.
Medicaboom. It sounds correct, and that is where the English leather shaving lotion comes in. And I still have it. If you still need to smell good, you can see me after class. I still kept it over here. And then they have the busted pop bottle, which is how you can cut a fool. And then we talk about the big open, this is the empty spots that they're going to get to, and Madras is what the guy was wearing. I think that was, we got to the
You got to there,
and
then go on more?
No, because the next one we've not gotten to yet.
Oh, yeah.
I know that because no class have gotten that far yet. So we are on page 9, and this actually is the very next screen is what we're getting ready to get to. Because they talked about Derry being a big, strong person. So I have a paragraph, and then I have to stop because we have another show and tell. Ah, dang it. Carrington was right. We didn't get to the next one, which was the
I knew it.
And that was the eyebrow that pops up from there. There we go. Now,
so we beat the other people?
No, I forgot that screen existed. It's the screen after this. Steve Randall. Oh, by the way, home children, we're on page 9. Steve Randall was 17, tall and lean, with thick, greasy hair. He kept combed in complicated swirls. He was cocky, smart, and Soda's best buddy since grade school. Now, Steve's specialty was cars. He could lift a hubcap quicker and more quietly than anyone in the neighborhood. But he also knew cars upside down and backward. And, well, he could drive anything on wheels. He and Soda worked at the same gas station. Steve part-time and Soda full-time. And their station got more customers than any other one in town. Whether that was because Steve was so good with cars, or because Soda just attracted girls like honey draws flies, I couldn't tell you. I liked Steve only because he was Soda's best friend. He didn't like me. He thought I was a tag-along and a kid. Soda always took me with them when they went places, and if they weren't taking girls, and that bugged Steve. It wasn't my fault. Soda just always asked me. I didn't ask him. Soda doesn't think I'm a kid. So I have to pause there. So they're talking about him lifting hubcaps.
That's a car.
Hubcaps? Yeah. They're the things that go on the outside wheels of cars. I brought one in.
They're made of plastic now. They're light.
They are. And so this one might look fancy, but when you turn it around, it's just old plastic from there. And so at one time, they were made of heavy metal. And they would go on the outside of wheels. And back in the 50s and 60s, if you were a young, enterprising criminal, that was your way to make money. You would go around the neighborhood and you would take a big screwdriver and you could pop them off. And then once you pop them off, you would just lift them up. So it was called lifting hubcaps. You would steal 4 of them and then go around to other people and then like hold open like your trench coat like a bunch of hubcaps and they're like, you want to buy a hubcap? And then you could sell hubcaps to people and make money.
So it's like stealing catalytic converters.
Something like, it was the old version of catalytic converters. Nowadays, it doesn't do you any good if you're like, I'm making fat cash this week. You can't sell them today because now people have rims, which are the things like that are inset into the tires, and you can't pop those off. Plus, hubcaps are now made of plastic, and you can go to Five Below and get 4 of them. So if you steal hubcaps, you can walk around like, you want to buy a hubcap for $25? It's probably not worth you stealing the hubcap. But back in the day, if you were a young criminal, that's how you make your money. Nowadays, you have to go on YouTube and figure out how to cut off a catalytic converter. Make your fat cash that way. until you get arrested.
Saw go big.
You know, choices. Oh, they're going to talk about this guy next. Will Rogers, who was like one of the original stand-up comics, although he dressed up as a cowboy, which was kind of weird. But if you're familiar with people like John Mulaney, Chris Rock, like he was one of the original guys who did that, who was known for being a stand-up comic.
I wonder why so many people are familiar with Chris Rock.
It was weird. He must be in the news lately for a stand-up. Two-Bit Matthews was the oldest of the gang and the wisecracker of the bunch. He was about 6 feet tall, stocky in build, and very proud of his long, rusty-colored sideburns. He had gray eyes and a wide grin, and he couldn't stop making funny remarks to save his life. I mean, you couldn't shut up that guy. He always had to get his 2 bits worth in, hence his name. I mean, even his teachers forgot his real name was Keith, and we hardly remembered he had one. Life was one big joke to 2-Bit. He was famous for shoplifting and his black-handled switchblade, which he couldn't have acquired without his first talent. And he was always smarting off to the cops. I mean, he really couldn't help it. Everything he said was so irresistibly funny that he just had to let the police in on it to brighten up their dull lives. At least that's the way he explained it to me. He liked fights, blondes, and for some unfathomable reason, school.
I like school.
He was still a junior at 18 and a half and never learned anything. I mean, he just went for kicks. I liked him real well because he kept us laughing at ourselves as well as at other things. He reminded me of Will Rogers. Or maybe it was the grin. Quick pause. So, school-wise, do you guys know what grade junior is?
8.
Go to you in high school.
So yeah, so it's the 3rd year. So you have 7th grade, 8th grade, and then 9th grade is called freshman, 10th grade is sophomore, 11th is junior, and then 12th grade is senior. So typically if you're 18 and a half, normally you're already in college or graduated. He's 18 and a half and still in 11th grade. As we find out then later, he's been held back but doesn't care. He's just a happy-go-lucky, friendly kid. He was like, I go to school because if I don't go to school, what else am I going to do? Like sit around and work? He's like, I might as well go to school and hang out with people. So he's just like the happy kid that just hangs out with people. Doesn't really care and is just a good, I mean, maybe not a good kid. Does rob people, but
Sounds like me.
yeah, fairly good kid.
You robbed
If I had to pick the real character of the gang, it'd be Dallas Winston. Dally. I used to like to draw his picture when he was in a dangerous mood, for then I could get his personality down in just a few lines. He had an elfish face with high cheekbones and a pointed chin, small, sharp animal teeth, and ears like a lynx. His hair was almost white. It was so blonde, and he didn't like haircuts or hair oil either, so it fell over his forehead in wisps, and kicked out of the back in tufts, and curled behind his ears and along the nape of his neck. His eyes were blue, blazing ice, cold with the hatred of the whole world. Dally had spent 3 years on the wild side of New York, and he'd been arrested at the age of 10. He was tougher than the rest of us. Tougher, colder, meaner. But the shade of difference that separates a greaser from a hood, that wasn't present in Dally. He was as wild as the boys in the downtown outfits, like Tim Shepard's gang. In New York, Dally blew off steam in gang fights. But here, organized gangs are rarities. There's just small bunches of friends who stick together. The warfare is between the social classes. A rumble, when it's called, is usually born of a grudge fight, and the opponents just happen to bring their friends along. I mean, there's a few named gangs around, like the River Kings and the Tiber Street Tigers. But here in the Southwest, there's no gang rivalry. So Dally, even though he could get into a good fight sometimes, had no specific thing to hate. No rival gang. Only socias. And you can't win against them no matter how hard you try. Because they've got all the breaks, and even whipping on them isn't going to change that fact. Maybe that's why Dallas was so bitter. Now, he had quite a reputation. They have a file on him down at the police station. He'd been arrested. He got drunk. He rode in rodeos, lied, cheated, stole, rolled drunks, jumped small kids. He did everything. I didn't like him, but he was smart, and you had to respect him. Pause there again. So, a couple things. One, the story is taking place in the Southwest. They're going to talk about it being in Oklahoma. So it's taking place just north of Texas in the Oklahoma area. The other thing is with Dally, he's not a good person. Not even a little bit. I'm assuming you guys don't know what rolling a drunk is, because you probably do. So rolling a drunk is when you go to a party and you wait till someone gets so drunk on alcohol that they pass out on the ground. Once they are passed out, you literally roll them over so you can find their wallet, take their wallet, pull out the money, throw the wallet back down. So it's a way of mugging people when they're passed out at parties. So that's what Dally would do to get money. He would go to parties and then just walk around people who had too much to drink, roll them over, and take all their jewelry. Because we're going to talk about multiple times, he has like jewelry on him that he has stolen from drunks. The other thing was they talk about jumping someone. There's differences. Let's say Isaac and I have beef and we're trying to throw down. That's just a fight. The next level up is jumping someone. So if I'm scared of Isaac and I know he can take me, I would then go get a bunch of my teacher friends and we would wait in the hallway for Isaac to come around, and then all of us would jump out, push Isaac down, and then start kicking him when he's on the ground. That's jumping somebody.
Sounds like a good time.
Earlier with the car, when the car pulled up and the Socias all jumped out and started attacking
That's
Ponyboy,
a jump.
that was jumping. So that's what Dally does, but who does Dally jump?
Social.
Yeah, so not only does
little
he
kids.
jump people, he jumps kids younger than him.
So
And
he's
he gets-
scared of them.
It's more that he's just a really bad person. And so he gets joy out of getting his friends together and then just beating up like junior high kids, because they'll talk about him chasing them later on. So that gives you an idea of him. He's special. And then the last kid, Johnny Cade. Johnny Cade was last and least. Now, if you can picture a little dark puppy that's been kicked too many times and is lost in a crowd of strangers, yeah, you'll have Johnny. He was the youngest next to me, smaller than the rest, with a slight build. He had big black eyes and a dark tan face, and his hair was jet black and heavily greased and combed to the side. But it was so long, it fell in shaggy bangs across his forehead. He had a nervous, suspicious look in his eyes, and that beating he'd gotten from the Socias, it didn't help matters. He was the gang's pet, like everyone's kid brother. His father was always beating him up, and his mother just ignored him, except when she was hacked off at something, and then you could hear her yelling at him clear down at our house. I think he hated that worse than getting whipped. He would have run away a million times if we hadn't been there. If it hadn't been for the gang, Johnny would never have known what love and affection even are. I wiped my eyes hurriedly. Did you catch him? No, they got away this time, the dirty. Two-Bit went on cheerfully, calling the Socias every name he could think of, or just make up. Kids okay? I'm okay. I tried to think of something to say. I'm usually pretty quiet around people, even the gang. I changed the subject. I didn't know you were out of the cooler yet, Daddy. Good behavior. I got out early. Do you guys know what cooler is slang for?
Yeah.
So he has just gotten out of jail. Dallas lit a cigarette, handed it to Johnny. Everyone sat down to have a smoke and relax. A smoke always lessens the tension. I quit trembling and my color was back. The cigarette was calming me down. Two-Bit cocked an eyebrow. Now that's a nice looking bruise you got there, kid. I touched my cheek gingerly. Really? Two-Bit nodded sagely. That's a nice cut. That makes you look tough. Now tough and tough are two different words. Tough is the same as rough. But tough means cool or sharp, like a tough-looking Mustang or a tough record. In our neighborhood, both are compliments. If you are unfamiliar with what the Mustang is, old muscle car, and if you are unfamiliar with what a record is, because it's not an MP3, that's what records are.
Bro, Mustangs back then looked way better. Well,
I like that. It's a good look to it.
the new Mustangs are cool.
I agree.
I like the Mustang trucks too.
That's kind of interesting.
They're not trucks, they're SUVs.
That's
Well, guess what?
The electric one, yeah. Steve flicked his ashes at me. What were you doing walking by your lonesome? Leave it to good old Steve to bring up something like that. I was coming home from the movies. I mean, I didn't think... You don't ever think! Derry broke in. Not at home or anywhere when it counts. You must think at school with all them good grades you bring home, and you've always got your nose in a book. But do you ever use your head for common sense? No sirree bub. And if you did have to go by yourself, you should have carried a blade. I just stared at the hole in the toe of my tennis shoe. Me and Derry just didn't dig each other. I never could please him. He would have hollered at me for carrying a blade if I had carried one. Now, if I brought home B's, he wanted A's. If I got A's, he wanted to make sure they stayed A's. If I was playing football, I should be in studying. If I was reading, I should be out playing football. He never hollered at Soda Pop. Not even when Soda dropped out of school or got tickets for speeding. He just hollered at me. Soda was glaring at him. Leave my kid brother alone, you hear? Come on, man, it ain't his fault he likes to go to the movies. It ain't his fault the socials like to jump us. If he had been carrying a blade, it would have been a good excuse to cut him to ribbons. Soda always takes up for me. Derry said impatiently, when I want my kid brother to tell me what to do with my other kid brother, I'll ask you, kid brother. But he laid off me. He always does when Soda Pop tells him to. You know, most of the time. Next time, get any one of us to go with you, Pony Boy, Two-Bit said. Well, any of us will. Speaking of movies, Dally yawned, flipping away his cigarette butt. I'm walking over to the nightly double tomorrow night. Anybody want to come and hunt some action? Steve shook his head. Nah, me and Soda were picking up Evie and Sandy for the game. He didn't need to look at me the way he did right then. I wasn't going to ask if I could come along. I'd never tell Soda because he really likes Steve a lot. But sometimes I can't stand Steve Randall. I mean it. Sometimes I hate him. Derry sighed, like I knew he would. Derry never had time to do anything anymore. Now I'm working tomorrow night. Dally looked at the rest of us. Yeah. Two-Bit, Johnny, you and Pony want to come? How about y'all? Me and Johnny will come, I said. I knew Johnny wouldn't open his mouth unless he was forced to. Is that okay, Derry? Yeah, since it ain't a school night.
Huh?
Derry was real good about letting me go places on the weekends. On school nights, I could hardly leave the house. I was planning on getting boozed up tomorrow night, Two-Bit said. If I don't, I'll walk over and find y'all. I'm assuming you guys know what boozed up is?
Yeah.
Drunk.
Yeah, drunk. Which happens a lot in the book, too. Steve was looking at Dally's hand. His ring, which he had rolled a drunk senior to get, was back on his finger. Did you break up with Sylvia again? Yeah, this time it's for good. That little broad was two-timing me again while I was in jail. I thought of Sylvia and Evie and Sandy and Two-Bit's mini blondes. They were the only kind of girls that would look at us, I thought. Tough, loud girls who wore too much eye makeup and giggled and swore too much. I liked Soda's girl Sandy just fine, though. Her hair was natural blonde, and her laugh was soft like her china blue eyes. She didn't have a real good home or anything, but she was our kind, greaser. She was a real nice girl. Still, lots of times, I wondered what other girls were like. The girls who were bright-eyed and had their dresses a decent length and acted as if they'd like to spit on us if given a chance. I mean, some were afraid of us. And remember Dallas Winston? I didn't blame them. But most looked at us like we were dirt. Gave us the same kind of look that the Socias did when they came by in their Mustangs and Corvairs and yelled, "Grace!" at us. Now, I wondered about them. The girls, I mean, did they cry when their boys were arrested? Like Evie did when Steve got hauled in? Or did they run out on them the way Sylvia did Dallas? I don't know, maybe their boys didn't get arrested or beaten up or busted up in rodeos. And I was still thinking about it while I was doing my homework that night. I had to read Great Expectations for English. And that kid Pip, he reminded me of us. The way he felt marked lousy because he wasn't a gentleman or anything. And the way that girl kept looking down on him. That happened to me once. One time, in biology, I had to dissect a worm and the razor wouldn't cut. So I used my switchblade. The minute I flicked it out, I forgot what I was doing, or I never would have done it. This girl right behind me kind of gasped and said, "They're right, you are a hood." Now, that didn't make me feel too hot. There were a lot of socias in that class. And I get put into the advanced class because I'm supposed to be smart, and most of them, they thought it was pretty funny. I didn't, though. She was a cute girl. She looked real good in yellow. We deserved a lot of our trouble, I thought. Dallas deserves everything he gets and should get worse if you want the truth. And 2-bit, he doesn't really want or need half the things he swipes from stores. He just thinks it's fun to swipe everything that isn't nailed down. I can understand why Soda Pop and Steve get into drag races and fights so much, though. Both of them have too much energy, too much feeling, no way to blow it off. Harder, Soda, I heard Derry mumbling. You're going to put me to sleep. I looked through the door. Soda Pop was giving Derry a back rub. He's always pulling muscles. He roofs houses. He's always trying to carry 2 bundles of roof on the ladder. I knew Soda would put him to sleep, because Soda can put about anyone out when he sets his head to it. He thought Derry worked too hard anyway. Man, I did too. Derry didn't deserve to work like an old man when he was only 20. He'd been a real popular guy in school. He was captain of the football team. He'd been voted Boy of the Year. We just didn't have the money for him to go to college, even with the athletics scholarship he won. And now, he didn't have time between jobs to even think about college. So he never went anywhere, never did anything anymore, except work out at gyms and go skiing with some old friends of his sometimes. I rubbed my cheek where it turned purple. I looked in the mirror. It did make me look tough, but Derry made me put a Band-Aid on the cut. I remembered how awful Johnny had looked when he got beaten up. I'd just as much right to use the streets as the Socias did. Johnny'd never hurt them. Why did the Socias hate us so much? We left them alone. I nearly went to sleep over my homework trying to figure it out. Soda Pop, who had jumped into bed by this time, yelled sleepily for me to turn off the light and get to bed. When I finished the chapter I was on, I did. Lying there, staring at the wall, I kept remembering the faces of the Socias as they surrounded me. That blue Madras shirt the blonde was wearing, and I could still hear a thick voice. You need a haircut, greaser? I shivered. Are you cold, pony boy? A little, I lied. Soda threw one arm across my neck, mumbled something drowsily. Listen, kiddo, when Derry hollers at you, man, he don't mean nothing. He's just got more worries than somebody his age ought to. Don't take him serious, you dig, pony? I mean, don't let him bug you. He's really proud of you because you're so brainy. It's just because you're the baby. I mean, he loves you a lot. You savvy? Sure, I said, trying for Soda's sake to keep the sarcasm out of my voice. Soda? Yeah. How come you dropped out? I never have gotten over that. I could hardly stand it when you left school. 'Cause I'm dumb. The only things I was passing anyway were auto mechanics and gym. You're not dumb. Yeah, I am. But hey, shut up, I'll tell you something. Don't tell Derry, though. Okay. I think I'm gonna marry Sandy. I mean, after she gets out of school, and I get a better job and everything. I might wait till you get out of school, though, so I can still help Derry with the bills and stuff. Tough enough. Wait till I get out, though, so you can keep Derry off my back? Man, don't be like that, kid. I told you he don't mean half of what he says. Are you in love with Sandy? What's that like? It's real nice. In a moment, his breathing was light and regular. I turned my head to look at him, and in the moonlight, he looked like some Greek god come to earth. Probably Apollo.
Hey, we just learned about those.
I know. I wondered how he could stand being so handsome. Then I sighed. I didn't quite get what he meant about Derry. Derry thought I was just another mouth to feed, somebody to holler at. Derry loved me? I thought of those hard, pale eyes. Alright, Soda was wrong for once. Derry doesn't love anyone or anything except maybe Soda. I didn't hardly think of him as being human. I don't care, I lied to myself. I don't care about him either. Soda's enough, and I'd have him until I got out of school. I don't care about Derry. But I was still lying, and I knew it. I lie to myself all the time, but I never believed me. Chapter 2. I have a question for you guys. One, this might make it a little bit easier for you guys to picture
Pony
them.
boy.
And so, of the
Johnny.
different characters, there is a movie that came out that was based on it, so I figured I'd show you who the characters are that go into it. So, it gives you an idea. It might make it a little bit easier for you to picture some of them.
Wait, what is
Who's the tough one? Oh, 2-bit.
So yes, this 2-bit is the one that clowns around and jokes. This is older brother. This is scary guy. This is the funny older brother who was just talking to him. Main character. This is the one that gets beat up a lot. And then this is the one that is his best friend that he does not like. By the way, you should recognize that one.
I don't.
That's Tom Cruise.
That's Tom Cruise.
And that one right there is Johnny.
That's Johnny.
That's the dude from
Johnny looks like
Cobra Kai.
Nicely done. That is Cobra Kai. That is
His real name.
Johnny looks 4.
No,
he was like 20 at that time.
Daniel
I think I
LaRusso.
remember.
That's his.
Nicely done. In the show,
Oh,
it was Daniel LaRusso.
oh,
Nicely done. I have another picture.
That dude's 4.
He's from Karate Kid.
Oh, now you can.
So Matt Mickelson, so it's the same characters, just a slightly different picture. But yeah, so it gives you
Alright.
that there.
How come people don't like Steve?
In the book, it's because he can come across as a bit of a jerk. And I thought it's just Ponyboy who doesn't like Steve. Because I think Steve...
Not like the girls.
I don't think the girls don't not like Steve, that I know of. It's because he hangs out with Soda, who's so handsome. Steve would be good on his own, but I think next to Soda, he just doesn't look quite as impressive. Non-outsiders question for you guys. I was thinking of this thing. I'm curious to see your guys' opinion. So I was trying to figure out my schedule for this week, and I'm curious about with other teachers and what I did. I was trying to find activities that would not drive you guys insane, like today and tomorrow. And in the past, I have made like a test on Thursday because kids sometimes get all insane and hard to rally, which drives teachers nuts. So I figured today, reading, I was trying to make it as entertaining as possible. And tomorrow, we're going to do a nonfiction article, but it doesn't sound fun until you realize it's about 2 kids getting into a fight, and then one of them video recorded it, and I got a copy of the video recording. So we're going to talk about the fighting and how it connects, so I think it'll be a fun way to sort of end it and give you guys a conversation. But my question to you guys is, as we get here to the end, if you had a preference on what you could do in a class, what is it you would want?
Have fun.
Chick-fil-A.
Because part of it is I have to do things that aren't going to get me in trouble, so I can't bring you Chick-fil-A.
Free food.
I mean, as far as lesson-wise, I know like some classes are like, I don't know, they're watching a movie or making you guys take a test, but a thing that I could actually do in class, or is it just a matter of you guys don't care and then I get to come up with a thing, but I figured there was a thing you would prefer, I'd always ask.
We would don't.
Trace?
Just let us go wild and kill each
No,
Right,
no,
so that
no.
would be a thing I can't let you do.
Oh.
Charlie?
We should watch a movie.
Yeah.
And it goes back and forth. I've thought about doing that because I did like the one right before Christmas break where we watched like the Twilight Zone that connected to the Richard Cory.
But no one liked the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. It was fun.
I like that. I like that.
Part of it is I can't just put on a random movie. It's one thing because it has to connect to what we're learning about in some way. So that would be something like a
That movie right there.
Yeah.
Twilight Zone. Yeah, one, I'm not showing you this movie because we've not read the book. So I'm not showing you the movie before we read. Grant?
Like the Gleason's movie thing that you talked about. That was.
She literally.
Yes, I can't, because we haven't read the book yet, so I can't show you the movie before we finish the
You
book.
just
should watch
said that
the
the
Shadow
only
Club
reason
thing.
why they
No.
called them Gleasons is because.
Oh, the other movie, Grease?
Yes.
I got you. So I could show, I guess, scenes from that, which could work. The movie Grease could show clips from that.
No,
Well, the
not do
movie
that.
Hercules because we just learned.
Yeah.
And I've thought about doing something like that, but part of it is if I end up spending that whole time having you guys watch a thing, then that means you guys have to read more of the book on your own. Because there's like a sliding scale of time to get stuff done. And if I take away a reading day or something like that, like I cut out a movie so that I could read more to you guys in class and have you guys read less on your own. Because I only have so many days with you, so I have to find that balance. Nathan?
A class among us game.
Good, but again, I would get in trouble for that. So that's why I was trying to find a thing that I could actually do with you.
Educational.
The
Nick?
same thing we did.
Isn't there like a Shadow Club movie?
Remember when
There is no movie for Shadow Club. There should be. It's a great book, but no, it's never been turned into anything.
Remember when we split up to what boys and girls and we did that basketball thing?
Uh-huh.
Let's do that.
But that we already did it. That is to review for a test. We've already taken the test. So I don't have another thing to review for.
So we're gonna see who knows
Right.
Mr. B best.
So you let us play on our phones the whole time, and then for 20 minutes at the end, you make us write make us write a paragraph or two about what we were doing and why we
Bro,
want to do it.
Be quiet, bro.
So again,
No.
some of your ideas were ones that would get me in trouble, and the problem is I would like to not get fired because then I can't continue
Why
to
would that get you
puzzle.
in trouble? That's an assignment.
It is
Mr. Brovicast.
an assignment. So it would be like turn around and smack your neighbor. That's an assignment. Also one that would probably not go over very well. But anyway, I figured I would ask to see your guys' opinions to see. Anyway, I figured reading today and then doing an article that involves, I mean, there is homework tomorrow, but again, it's 5 questions, and as long as you get it done in class, you should be good. And then we have a connection with our little video and stuff like that.
No, we should do No, we should do the.
Well, tomorrow goes back down to 40 degrees, so it goes, I know, because it's Indiana.
We should do the Rubik. We should do